Hello everyone, my name is Pamela Noury, Head of Expedition Operations at Noble Caledonia, and we have with us here Hannah Lawson. Hello Hannah, how are you?
I'm really good, yeah.
Good, well thanks so much for joining us on this chat. We're going to be talking about the British Isles. Now Hannah has been expedition cruising longer than anyone I know, 21 years I believe it is, and expedition leader for 18 years. Really a specialist and mainstay of the British Isles. I think there's few people who know the British Isles, the British and Irish Isles as well as you do. But in addition to those accolades and accomplishments, Hannah is an extremely talented photographer, one of our top naturalists and all-round naturalists as well, from the little critters to the big marine mammals and birds in between. And the most fantastic illustrator. She does charts and drawings. You might have got a lovely Hannah Lawson birthday card over the years if you've had one of your birthdays on the Skyship. So really, really nice to have you as part of the Noble Caledonia family, I must say. Such a multi-talented and experienced person as yourself. And thanks for joining us on this British and Irish Isles chat.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, it's I love doing the trips every year. I travel worldwide as well, so I go up to the Arctic and the Antarctic. But I love doing the UK trips, and I've been doing them for 21 years now, every year. So it does feel kind of pretty amazing that I've had that opportunity to be out there. And I live in West Yorkshire, so I live in the middle of the country, as far from the sea as it's possible to be. But going up to Scotland, especially every year, is such a treat. And the UK is amazing from the sea.
Well, I must say, Hannah, I know you specialize in, and you're very popular, sought after to do the polar regions, the Arctic. I know you spend a lot of time every northern summer in the Arctic and the Antarctic. So I'm always so happy that you always give us a big slot of your time to do the British Isles. And I think it says a lot about the British Isles when it's competing for you with destinations like, the Arctic at the same time, that you make sure you always get your British Isles slot. Yeah. And for me, I think it's, not being, sort of born and raised there. I don't have that sort of backyard love of it. But for me, I think people sometimes miss how they think, oh, it's close to home. Maybe it's not very exotic or exciting, but how much of a well-rounded expedition destination the British and Irish Isles are.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got everything. I mean, there's obviously incredible maritime history that we've got around the UK shoreline. And the Irish shoreline, but there's also just phenomenal wildlife and stunning landscape. I mean, the seascapes and the cliff sides and the sea cliffs. I have a particular love of zodiac cruising through sea caves, and we have some of the best in the world, which you wouldn't kind of expect it, but yeah. And then wildlife wise, it's absolutely stunning. With the seabird cliffs, especially in the spring and summertime, where we've got all of our nesting seabirds, and it's just this fantastic cacophony of noise. And you can visit some of the places that we go to from the shore side, and they're on the top of the cliff, but we take the zodiacs out, and we're at the bottom of the cliff, and it's a really different. Just seeing going from place to place, seeing the coastline changing. It is very magic.
Yeah, I think it's an extremely overlooked or not that well known expedition destination. And you've got all these places that the names of so well, even the Channel Islands, Guernsey and these sorts of places. But going to all these little, as you say, steeped in maritime history, islands and places, it's absolutely fascinating. And I know for you, it will be no secret that the Hebrides, the inner and outer Hebrides, is all the little hidden gems available.
Yeah, they're the places I suppose I like the best, and especially heading out to St Kilda. It's a kind of mythical isle, double World Heritage Site, with the history, the human history that was there, and also the wildlife. The largest northern gannet colony in the world. But then also, this phenomenal, archaeological history, going back thousands of years, but then through up till the 1930s. And so, yeah, almost every trip I do, I try to head out to St Kilda if we can fit it in. And if the weather allows, which you can normally play around with the itinerary a little bit because it's expedition cruising, to make sure that we're there on the best weather day that we can manage for somewhere like St Kilda. But even the less dramatic places, you know, and just some of the uninhabited islands that we visit, like Mingulay, and then the places with the very small communities that are still sort of living this life sort of out on these outer islands is fantastic. You know, we often go to a place called Canna, which is a super little island with, you know, population of about 13, I think, and so yeah, it is very special places.
Yeah, you said that so well. My very first expedition cruise was it was called Summer in the Isles. I came horribly ill prepared, as if it was going to be summer in the Isles. And
Yeah.
I was so cold, and I just had all the wrong gear and had the wrong impression. And you know, the brochure's got like the sunny photo of Iona, and Iona's got that like white sand and clear seas, and you think like, oh, great, it looks like tropical paradise. You know, I really came poorly prepared, but I guess I was so blown away. Coming from South Africa, I always thought the United Kingdom and that whole area was inevitably going to be so overdeveloped. There wasn't going to be too much open landscapes and wilderness left. And I just was absolutely blown away by the wilderness and wildlife and wide open spaces, huge, big, wild open spaces. And then these communities, I mean, you said Canna, but also Fair Isle and these little island communities that are so happy to see us, and life's just so uncomplicated in these lovely little spots. I just never expected all of that.
Yeah, no, it's magic. And you were saying about the weather, I always love, I think that if Scotland had, you know, had a more had weather that was more predictable, no one would ever go anywhere else. And you were saying about Iona, when the sun shines, it's like being in the Caribbean. But even when it's wild, I still love it. It's kind of sometimes the wild weather can be as magical as the you know, as the clear, bright weather.
Yeah.
But you know, I suppose it is especially fantastic when you get the flat, calm days, and it's, you know, when we get to see some of the wildlife that you can only see when it's calm. I've actually got a picture I was going to try and share, where I've got a picture of a porpoise, a harbour porpoise, and these little tiny marine mammals that we know they're in big populations around Britain, but we only see them when it's flat, calm. And I'm going to see if the technology is going to let me do this. So. Yeah,
because the harbour porpoises are so small and they really don't expose much themselves when they break the surface. So even just to get a decent photo of them is pretty hard work. That looks like
I might have to scroll through some. I might have to just show everyone. This is gannets against the cliffs of St Kilda with the shadows.
Fantastic. Oh, and absolutely gorgeous.
And another great a very, very nice grebe, great crested grebe, and the guillemots that we get, more gannets. Gannets are kind of my favourite northern hemisphere.
And it really is a highlight, not only St Kilda, but Bass Rock and others.
Yeah. And very, very flat, calm in Scotland, fishing boats, and just.
It's always calm like that, hey?
Always, except for when it's a bit more like this. So this is sort of probably a more normal kind of weather day in the Scottish Isles. And this is actually the itinerary, one of the trips that we do very regularly, and you can sort of see that we jump from island to island and have these amazing kind of stopping off spots in some of the more remote places in the world. But some of the places we visit, like the Loch Scavaig that you can see up on the Isle of Mull, there is a place where normally to get there you would have to hike for a day over the Coolins of Skye. And we just drop off with the Zodiacs, and we end up having this experience in a place that you can only reach normally by serious hiking. So there are absolutely, you know, gems that we can get to with what we do. So yeah, and then out to St Kilda and Fulmars.
And even those better known places that you can get to by the Calmac ferry, it's still quite a big hassle to get there. And the result is that all these places are usually so quiet. It's so lovely to be among so few tourists when you go to even the better known places.
That's very true. Yeah. The technology is defying me again slightly, but hopefully I will work it out. This is one of the other itineraries that we do, where we head a little bit further afield. Well, we start out in the south of England and head to the Scilly Islands, the Isles of Scilly, which are really magical as well, with these very, very beautiful. And they do have a microclimate very different from the rest of Britain, with tropical, almost like tropical gardens on them. And then by the end, we're up, again in the real wilds, up in the very, very north of Scotland.
And even those places in Wales, I mean, those little islands down there, Scoma, it's just absolutely fantastic. They're really great little wilderness gems to go be able to visit.
They are, yeah. Here we go. I was just gonna come back and talk. Yeah, there we go. Finally worked out the technology again. I couldn't find my porpoise picture. Must be further on in the line. So.
Oh yeah, no, but it's great. I mean, I don't know how as expedition leader you also find so much time to take great photos. That's something I never have been able to crack right, is taking decent photos. My head's always too swallowed up in worrying about things.
No, I do a bit of worrying as well, but I suppose I've just always got my camera at my hip, and if I see something, I try and snap it if I can. And I take a lot of them from the deck of the ship, where everything's a little calmer as well. So
yeah,
out on Zodiac cruises as well.
I mean, the Oban to Oban is such a classic trip. I think next year we've got 30 British Isles cruises because it's our 30-year anniversary. Wow. So I was just thinking, the Oban to Oban is such a lovely little classic. You've got all those little inner Hebrides, and then some of the outer Hebrides. Obviously, we always try and do St Kilda. We have a very high success rate at St Kilda. But the other itinerary that I think is so magical is those ones, I think they're sometimes called Atlantic Island Odyssey, and they go all the way up around Faroes, Shetlands, Orkney, Fair Isle. I mean, just incredible array of islands all around that Atlantic section. That's a real highlight trip as well.
Yeah, it is, and there you end up some of the places with some of the best sea caves. Actually, there's a place called Papa Store off the coast of Shetland that is just phenomenal for the sea caves.
It really
also,
is.
Yeah, the wildlife. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if the weather allows, there's that one that you can meet in about 4 different directions, like a big passageway underneath this island. It's just so incredible. And there are hidden gems all the way around. I know we even do one full circumnavigation of more or less the whole UK, coming down the whole east coast of England. And there's again on that side just these absolutely fantastic little gems. My feeling is that, people sometimes think, oh, maybe it's a consolation prize to just travel close to home, or it's not that exciting or not that exotic. But the more you do it, the more you just think this place is so incredible, and it's not that busy in terms of people, and there's so much just hidden gems.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you don't have to get. Yeah, it's a good reminder that you don't have to head off on a flight anywhere. You can just catch the train and reach a place and be whisked away to somewhere that you wouldn't expect. Sorry, excuse me. So especially if you're living in a city in England, or or even up in Scotland, you might not have any idea that there are places where there's 70 people kind of living on a remote island where there's more sheep and ponies than there are people. And more, one of the islands, Fula, that we visit when we can, there's more great skuas than there are people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Actually, that reminds me, the other real nice thing about doing those islands and that whole region is on our small ships. Ocean Nova, which we always charter in May, is so small. What is the capacity there? 80?
Yeah.
And then the Skies with only 100. So it's a nice number to be dotting around on these little small islands. You wouldn't want to come up with any bigger of a vessel than that to go to those islands. It's sort of, you feel very welcomed in that group size.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the time, when we visit Fula, they always open up the school for us. And there's often, recently there's been 3 pupils. One we went 2 or 3 years ago. They only had 1 pupil in the school, and he was so excited. And he did all this artwork to welcome the ship, and had produced some cards and some things for the passengers, and it was, you could tell that it was a real joy for him as well, and for the rest of the community that we'd arrived and came ashore. And it kind of, but because we are a small group, sort of 75 people, and it's sort of it's not overwhelming, but it's also just really nice. And then often they'll have baked, you know, we end up sometimes, you know, Fair Isle as well, they do it, and some of the other stops where the local people will have had a week of kind of baking before we arrive, and we have these very lavish teas, and it's absolutely fantastic. And
actually, since you mentioned it, that those scones that we have around in Fair Isle, those are kind of like a highlight of the journey for me.
yeah, drop scones. Yeah, and they only seem to be able to make them like that in Fair Isle. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, and they got that lovely knitwear as well. I think you were talking about, I'm sure that kid's name was Jack, and he made all these lovely shopping bags that we all purchased a shopping bag the one year. And then Uns and Fetler, they bring out the whole band, like the whole community plays in the band for us on the day we arrive. No, it's so nice. It's very heartwarming. And then I forgot to mention as well, I mean, we mentioned about the archaeology, but those brocks like Musa. And again, you're just in this most incredible brock, and there's just no one else around. You pass by it as though by accident, and then you can go ashore there and, you know, wander around this brock and just be the only ones there. It's so strange to think that there's no one else around so often when we go to these places.
Yeah, so I think some of the uninhabited islands are my favourite. But yeah, like Musa, going to Mingulay, which is it's not quite the southernmost of the Outer Hebrides, the second most southern. And yeah, there's just a few abandoned buildings, and we have the island to ourselves that we can just wander around. And then sometimes we do real expeditions, sort of where we might get blown out of a location, and then we just find another place to visit. And we did that a few years ago. We found a lovely little island to just go and wander around on. It was off the coast of Skye, and a little bay, very sheltered, and so I really like doing that as well, just sort of poking around and finding new spots occasionally as well.
For sure. Anyway, Hannah, thanks so much. I hope people are encouraged, if they haven't done it yet, to at least do a couple of British Isles trips before they hang up their traveling boots, because it really, really is something special. And I look forward to my season every year. And like I said, we're so grateful and lucky to have someone like you running those trips every year as well. But thank you so much for your time. And we'll hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
All right, cheers.